as an alumni, I was doing some, and after doing my diploma film, I was shooting my junior project, and I was also looking for some material so that I can also make my independent film. So my father read an article about a typist in UP, I think. So a policeman broke down the typewriter of the typist because of some personal issues or something. There was some issues there, right? So I thought, why not make a like kind of a black comedy or satire and narrate it in a very different way, like in a poetic way, kind of a thing. So I wrote it down, the screenplay, and then I shoot it in a very different way, like in a poetic way. So that is the idea behind the story or the film, and the film is all about the typist and the letter. So what happened in the film? So can I tell about the film, right?
Very briefly, if you want to, sure, go for it.
Okay. So in the film, like a girl comes to a typewriter to type a letter, and with the letter he also typed a verse of a poem in it, with the hope that she will remember her and visit him again in the future. And next day, the letter published in the newspaper, and the verse of the poem, and it become controversial issue. And because of this letter, the police confiscate the typewriter instead of the typist. The typist then goes to release his typewriter from police custody, and an investigation starts. So in the end, will he able to explain and justify the real motive? I mean, behind writing the letter and prove himself and his typewriter innocent. So the comedy or the satire is like, how can a police confiscate the typewriter instead of a typist? So that is the idea was that was the idea actually, and we shoot it in a very like poetic way. So
It's really great to hear sort of like what the inspirations behind all your films are. Varun, you were talking about addressing sort of the censorship board, and this panel is called Truth to Power. And I wanted to ask Prashant and Arafat if you could tell us what power it is you wanted to challenge with your film. Who is it that you really wanted to sort of speak to in that way? Maybe I can ask you, Arafat, to tell us about in your film in particular, what power you wanted to really take on.
So I think what I really wanted was to speak to my community of the Muslim community, which has been acting with a certain amount of majoritarian tyranny in their head, that just because they're in the majority, they get to define what honor and what is sacred and what is to be protected, and how do you protect what is sacred, and confront that power imbalance that lies with the majority Muslim population in Pakistan by asking them to confront that in a very innocent way, and by turning that into a science fiction film, that it's almost as if you've gamified this religion and you've gamified this system. You swipe right for Wajib Qatl, you swipe left for Maafi. It's Tinder, but for a hot-headed mufti. In a bigger systemic level, I think our work in general on blasphemy and this film in this specific really wants to confront the religious capitalist nexus in Pakistan in specific, but like really where I would like to really hope to appeal almost in a kind tone, not in a necessarily sarcastic tone, but almost in a tender, kind, gentle tone, is appeal to their basic humanity, that there's a lot of responsibility and power, and the power differential is really high with the Muslim majority country. We are 96% Muslim population in Pakistan. And if we start imposing these values of honor and sacredness through state institutions on everyone, what kind of hell does that bring us in?
Great, yeah. Prashant, can you tell us a bit about what power you wanted to challenge in particular with your film?
It's difficult to tell right now. What I can say is that it's more of what I saw with the rise of social media, social media did something really interesting to spaces like India or Pakistan or other countries per se. I can talk about India right now, what I've seen. So social media basically has put an internal narrative of the upper castes of India out there, right? It has basically brought the internal feudal structures and internal opinions of people to public platform. So earlier, before social media, in publication, there was gatekeeping in India. So whatever you did, there was a hegemony of people who were more educated and who had publication with them. They would control the narrative. But social media has basically brought the narrative of all the people who have all the different opinions, and majority of them are basically controlled by upper caste opinions, dominating opinions, right? And of the opinions of the people who are in majority, who are more powerful, who have more capital, right, out there. So I saw moral policing operating from that space. And in this film, basically, I'm trying to culturally have, a negotiation with them. Like my film for me is basically a cultural product which is trying to have a negotiation with these people who are basically threatening, terrorizing, putting out their opinions. So I'm trying to put my opinion as a counter opinion to them.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Varun and Shristipal, I wanted to ask you both, your films take on censorship. And I wondered if you could talk a bit about the challenges of making a film about censorship in an atmosphere of censorship. Thinking particularly about what's happening in India in the present moment. I would love to hear your thoughts about what the challenges are of making a film about the subject matter itself. Maybe I'll start with you, Varun, if you could tell us.
Yeah, okay. So I generally, when I do stand-up comedy, I talk about the worst time to do comedy is the best time to do comedy. So similarly, I mean, the worst time to talk about censorship is the best time to talk about censorship. I think it is difficult, but then that's the point of art, that it thrives in difficult times. And I know it is I mean what is happening around us, with more and more artists either self-censoring or being being intimidated, bullied into silence by the regimes all around the world, not just in India, I would say. It is I think important for us. I won't say important in the sense that it's a responsibility, but it's something which I do because I can't stay silent. For me, it is very important, just for my own sanity. I don't stand for anyone else. I stand for ideas I believe in, or the kind of world I want to see around me. So for me, it is important that I put out stories which try to make bridges. I mean, there are enough people who are burning bridges. There are enough people who are creating new boundaries, erecting new boundaries around us. For me, as an artist, it is very essential that I create stories which anyone, no matter if they believe in censorship, let's say there are people who would actually say censorship is a great idea and there should be more of it. There are actually a majority of people out there are like that. So even them, they should be able to see the film and not feel ridiculed, but get a sense of understanding of my world, a world which they think is not essential, a world which they think is actually crossing lots of boundaries, which they have created. To just get a sense of my world without being, without feeling like it's the other voice which is coming. We all are, the voice of humanism, the voice of empathy, the voice of compassion. And that is essential for me. And that is the idea I feel if if that comes through for anyone watching the film, instead of just a skit or a sketch about censorship or morality, then yeah, then I don't want that to happen. I want people to engage with the film on just a basic human level, and that would be the whatever the
I mean, your film
victory.
does have a lot of heart, and I think it has a great sense of humor at the same time as well. But I wondered if you were worried at all when you were writing the film about releasing this film in an atmosphere of censorship.
I was slightly worried, but now I actually want to put this film in the censors, as in submit the film for the censor board certificate. And I want to make a documentary of the whole process, which I'll be doing in January onwards. I'll actually
Really great.
document the entire process, get them on camera, ask them if they don't like the film, if they are not giving it a certificate, if they have to say why. And that will be maybe a 15-minute documentary. By the end of it, either I get beaten up or something, or they actually give a certificate to the film, which then allows me to submit the film for one of the government-funded film festivals in India, which is which is called MIF, which is Mumbai International Film Festival of Documentaries and Short Films. They require a censor certificate for the film to be screened. So then that would be my next step, to take the film to a government-funded film festival and see how they respond. So yeah, the journey will continue, and I'm just. I know it's already, I mean, while making the film, I was slightly not scared, but apprehensive about how it will be received in India in general. I mean, we have had some screening. We have screened the film already in 3 film festivals in India, and we have had a day of ticketed screenings in Bombay, and we are having another day of ticketed screenings in Bombay again next week. And it was houseful, like 4 shows we did, and it was a small room, 70-80 people per show, but still there were people who came to watch the film, and they had good things to say. So that is, I think, so I'm feeling less and less anxious and more excited about submitting the film to censors now.
Well, Shristipal, I wanted to ask you that question as well, because your film also deals with censorship, and Varun, it's fascinating to hear the context of how people reacted to your film. But Shristipal, if you could tell us as well about making a film about censorship and an atmosphere of censorship. Were you worried at all? Did that affect your filmmaking?
Yeah, so after writing down the screenplay, and I show the story and the screenplay to my friends, my film school friends, and they all like it. Yeah, it's a good idea and all that. And then I pitch it to few financiers. I mean, like a few my relatives, those who have the money and all. So and also to my mentor, or so they all like the idea. It's a great idea and all that. But the financiers, they told me like they want romantic or comedy kind of films, and right now at this moment they don't want any political film or film based on freedom of speech or something, because they don't want to get into any controversies. So then I was like, okay, it's a good film. Like I was trying to convince them, like the treatment is different, right? Maybe the film is political, but I'm showing it very different way, right? So, but they didn't convince. So finally, I turned up to my father and I told him like, please give me some money and I'll make this film. I really want to make this film, and I made it finally, and the people appreciate it. And while I didn't get any problem in the censorship actually, because the way I treated the film, uh, the way I want to show it to the people, the treatment actually, it's like it's narrative film, but with the narrative, with the image and etc. I try to make it a more of a like political poetic films. You can say political poetic film. So so that is the idea. And yeah, in the beginning I really like faced some challenges, like how people think in this time, like it's internet, like it's a but it's still people like fear of like not getting into any political controversies and all that.
Mhm. That's interesting. I have a question from an audience member. Manasi Mishra asks, how difficult has it been to make these films in the current political environment? And are you worried about a backlash? And I think I would love to ask you that, Arafat. Are you worried about a backlash for your film? If you could perhaps tell us about that, and we'll throw it around to the rest of you as well.
So, I mean, it's too late to worry about that now because whatever back we got. So I was a little concerned at the start because it's a big animation team. It's a hand-drawn film, and we had 12 animators on board, and not all of them had their life's mission to talk about blasphemy law. They wanted to make a funny film. They wanted to make a good drama film. But I think what we knew right from the start was, even though blasphemy law is one of the most charged, emotionally charged issues in Pakistan, blasphemy and the love of the Prophet and how sacred that figure is, I sort of knew that one of the things that we have to do is make the film available to public scrutiny from day one. So one of the things that happens, and I saw happening with some of my friends, was that it was doing these really great festival circuits, prestige festival circuits that do not allow you to screen your own film at home. And what happens is you hear about this film, oh, hey, there's a film about a trans woman in love, or there's a film about blasphemy and the white man loves it, surely there must be something wrong with it. They must be shitting on our society. And before you know it, people have speculated the whole plot of the film. And you can't really show the film. And by the end, 2 years have passed and it's dated. So I think one of our biggest security measures was we showed it in 30 colleges and released it on YouTube. So if anybody has any issues about, because partly the script and the screenplay of the film is safety, because we're showing, we're not telling, we're not trying to give a moral argument. It's through the actions of the characters. It's a little subtle what we're really trying to say. But at the same time, I know that the risk would be further reduced if people could see this as an accessible film for everyone, and not just something that a quote unquote progressive elite of the society is in conversation with a political elite in the global north. That first and foremost, it's a conversation that we're having amongst ourselves for the brown community, that, hey, I made a film, do you want to see it? Oh, I know you might hate me for it, but here is it. First you see the film, then I'll send it to Venice. If they don't want my film because it's already released in Pakistan, then to hell with them. I think that really worked for us. And we did not, I've written a lot on blasphemy and received a lot of death threats because of those writings, those academic writings on those intellectual arguments and those op-eds. But this film was received with a lot of compassion. I think partly because our main character is a child, and you see some kind of loss of innocence by the end. I think there was, and even in our script, we were censoring ourselves just a little bit, because when we were making fun of the religious right and we were showing them selling and doing absurd cases, we had to be very clear. So one of our security measures was, don't actually use absurd cases. Don't actually use an actual blasphemy case. So you get a case on your phone and you vote whether you want to kill that person or not. So in Pakistan, blasphemy cases can be very absurd. Sometimes you can have a blasphemy case on you just because you misspelled a name or you dropped a card which had the word Muhammad on it. So we had to be even more absurd. We had to go, a woman did not, went ahead and coughed or used a miswak inappropriately, or she was caught eating pan during her marriage. So most of our cases were anti-patriarchal, but not necessarily anti-religious right. So that was also a safety net for us. But in my experience, the biggest thing that helped us was our distribution strategy. If it were any other film, we might not have just put it up right away on YouTube. We might have looked for distributors. But in this case, it just seemed right that first and foremost, this film is in a conversation with its own society, with our own people. So it's a brown film for brown people.
Interesting. And you are the only film in this bunch today that is actually an animated film. Why did you choose to use animation instead of live action?
I mean, because so we've done two animated films that we've released, and both of them were speculative fiction in one way or the other. So, and we were already in animation studio with a love for the craft, but more importantly, there's an absurdity that animation allowed us to do that live action was not going to allow us to do. There was a sort of design abstraction that you do, that you're not looking at real people. These are avatars of people. So maybe it's not really an attack on your society. And maybe it doesn't hit you like, oh, are you saying that we're wrong? Maybe you don't get that defensive. 3, there's no way I can hire real actors to play this in Pakistan and not put them at threat.
Right.
And just 4, I think we are just as filmmakers in our studio, we're really in love with the idea of having control of over every frame and drawing and painting every frame. And for better or for worse, that is our way of telling stories anyway. But those other 3 reasons are more specific to film.
Mm-hmm. Varun, you've kind of answered this question of the backlash, but I wanted to ask Prashant and Shristipal if you could talk also about if you were worried about backlash to your films at all. Prashant, maybe I'll ask you to go first.
Well, the first backlash started from my family. So when I told my family that I want to make film on moral policing, so they were like, you're not our son. We don't know you.
Yeah.
Nikal jao yahan se. So like, of course, when you are talking about society and when you're critical about something which is happening already on the aggression level, it is scary after a point of time that when you release the stuff, there are various ways people can, sort of engage you legally or whatever. They can threaten you. So that stuff has been there. Even while shooting the film, there was conflict. Even while doing the production design, what elements you place in the mise en scene and what kind of costuming has to be there. In all the elements, you have to be, in that case, you have to be really, really careful.
Mm-hmm.
You don't make a single misfire, because then you will have to, what Varun has been saying, that it's all like he has been talking about censorship. So basically that's a kind of, and he talked about internal censoring also, that the terror has basically made the artists extremely censor the material internal only. So that's a kind of suffering, and also that's a kind of a trauma response.
Mm-hmm.
So then I sort of had to, I'll be very honest, I had to slash my film, brutalize my film even before shooting it. Like I wrote the whole film, and then I sat down with few people, and then they told me that, Prashant, you can't make this. This is like bullshit. You can't take it out. I mean, you can't take it out. So I had to make it absolutely subtle, make it a humble child instead of a rebellious child. So that's the humble
your film is
version.
still quite intense. Like the intensity is still there, and I would find that probably there'll be really strong reactions to your film. No?
Yeah, I mean, I have been. So I'll be very honest, as Varun is also sitting there. So Mazhar has been a massive influence to me personally, as a product, as a film, as a cultural product. My parents, they belong to literature. So my family we discuss literature, and we have been discussing the literature for years and years. And Mazhar as a film was a very, very important work for us. And how we saw Mazhar was that it talked about caste, it talked about gender, it talked about moral policing, social media, YouTube, internet, arrival of technology in India, and parallelly feudal beliefs going on parallelly, and the conflict between the feudal beliefs and the technology and the modernity. So this kind, and still it was safe. I mean, of course, there must have been backlash, which Varun will be able to talk about. He knows the deeper game of it. But still, I could not see any bigger like any massive backlash to it. So I saw this film as a very, very important work, and rather a very clever work in which you organize the whole fiction in such a way that even the oppressor, when you show it to the oppressor is still there with you on it. Or rather, probably you don't want the oppressor to be with you, but the oppressor is still not creating a lot of hurdles. So that was the kind of stuff I wanted to make, like subtle, out there. People drink it, swallow it, keep it, and they don't know what it is doing to you. That is what I wanted to do. I don't know how successful I've been into it. Yeah, so whatever. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Shristipal, can you tell us if you were at all worried about backlash to your film, and has there been any backlash to your film?
Yeah, like I mean, the Mansi's question, I mean, it's not very difficult to make a political film, right, in this environment, actually. I think, like in film school, yeah, in film school we study like there are old films also, like Metropolis. There's a German film called Metropolis, and it was like it was made in 1920s, and then made in 1920s, but shoot it in like 2026, I think 2026. So they have shown at that time they have shown the political and morally political and morally in context, but the treatment is very different, right? So they shown the a futuristic world in 1920s. So like film like Prashant says, like film like Masan, Aankho Dekhi, like they have shown the moral and political context, right? And in very subtly. So I think in today's time, irrespective of content or other restriction, your film treatment is important. So like when I was making my film, like I didn't face any like difficulties, because my the teammates were some of my friends from FTI, some of my friends were from my film school whistling booths. So we made the film. So however, in the end, after making the film, the difficulty is where you want to show the film, right? So because some of the film festival are also not taking your film because of the political, because they are also fear of political controversies or something, because they want to show the good thing, or the good cinema, sorry, good things to the people. So I think the backlash in according to me is like where you gonna show after. It's not difficult to make a political film in this environment, or in old times also, the filmmakers have made the film political films, but they treated it very differently. So I think the treatment is different, but the backlash is like where you gonna show the film, right? After making the film or short film or feature film, where you gonna show the film? So even the film festivals, there are many film festivals, they are not taking the film because of the political drama, or they will don't want to get in any political controversy, etc., etc.
Yeah, and speaking of sort of how you treat a story and the treatment of it, Varun, I wanted to ask you, because in this group of four, we have an animation and we have two sort of more dramatic films, and yours is full of a lot of humor and has some magic realism in it. Why did you think that was genre-wise the best approach to the subject matter? Because at heart, your film also says something serious.
Yeah, so for me, so I have three cats, and generally, whenever we have to, whenever they are like their tummy is upset or something is wrong, we have to give them medicine, and it's really difficult to feed medicine to a cat. Probably the most difficult thing in the world is to give a pill to a cat. And then we figured out there's something called pill pockets. It's a piece of meat, the kind of flavors they like. It could be salmon, it could be lamb or whatever they like, and it's a pocket made of edible stuff they like, and then you put the pill in that, and that. Sorry for this long explanation, but yeah, pill pocket is something which you need for feeding. So similarly for this medicine, the idea I wanted to convey, sci-fi and magic realism was the pill pocket, because I knew like it's a very difficult idea to convey in 15 minutes, especially in a short film. I mean, if I had more time, if I was making a feature out of it, or even an episode of one of the anthologies, like a 40-50 minute kind of a screen time, probably I would have taken another approach, or maybe, I don't know, maybe same approach. But for this one, I really wanted to kind of mix genres and mix them in a way where you are constantly wondering, apart from, you know, the so that the theme or the central themes of the film kind of come to you as an afterthought, and in the beginning you are just curious and keen to find out what's happening really, and what the fuck is happening basically. Yeah.
I like this metaphor of the meat pocket. Shristipal, Prashant, if you wanted to talk at all about, you know, the genre that you chose, or why you chose to make it particular a live action. Like Prashant, your observation sounded very much like you could have also made a documentary. Why is it that you chose, instead of going that route or making an animation, that you chose the form of a live action drama?
I believe that to make a film on things like that, that's my personal belief. You need some bureaucratic access.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you need some sort of bureaucratic sources or some sort of internal connections when you want to make a film like that. A lot of filmmakers in India who have made independent films, and the bureaucratic access has really helped them in be it documentary or shooting at places where it is prohibited to shoot. I mean, when you can't do that, you have to sort of, unfortunately, but sometimes fabricate a story, be very safe with it, and go towards drama. Also, that probably we can call it that my my inclination towards drama is much more. I have been practicing theater, so when I see the screen, I see just and just drama. I see less of documentation. I'm weak with research, and I'm good with imagination. So I try to stick to it, and I try to stay honest to it. It's a very simple answer to that, and that's what I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Did you want to add anything, Shristipal, about the form that your film took and why you chose to make a live action drama as well?
Yeah, like I mean, I'm just exploring things nowadays. So I mean, as a film student, so I really like Bong Kar-wai in The Mood for Love, and the Metropolis also, the films. So the old films, actually in the old times they shoot it very differently actually, right? So you can get the I mean, you can get the idea from like newspaper, the TV, etc. You can feed yourself from many issues, like from anywhere, right? If the Instagram, everywhere, you get the ideas, right? But how, as a filmmaker, how you show it to the people, I think that what we have learned in the film school, like uh, the treatment is the key nowadays, like how you show your ideas to the people, so that it says like whatever message you want to give it to people, it also uh, uh, they can get it. And also like visually or the treatment wise, you can also experiment with your crafts. So that's why I think that's how I approach my film.
Mm-hmm. And I hope that, you know, this discussion has really encouraged people to watch your films if they haven't done so already. But I really wanted to ask you guys in conclusion, if you could perhaps tell us what it is you would want an audience to take away from watching your film. What did you want to leave them with? Perhaps I can start with you, Arafat. What did you want the audience to take from Swipe?
I think I wouldn't speak about the general audience and general public internationally, but what I wanted my people, my community, I think I really wanted them to re-examine what love and honor means for them. what ishq means for them and what ghairat means for them, and the things that they're willing to do in the name of protecting honor, and like how a word which is supposed to be a virtue, honor, ghairat, as we call it in Urdu, so much of oppression, violence, and patriarchal control stems from that. So if anyone can just re-examine for a minute that love cannot look like this, it cannot look like violence. Honor cannot be this. And if this is honor, then I want nothing to do with honor. If this is what sacred means, then this is not what then I don't want that. I would rather be profane than I'd be sacred. So something about a re-examination of what are supposed to be beautiful sentiments and emotions, such as love and honor, and how we've kind of not only weaponized them, but really corrupted them in our community.
Great. Prashant, can you tell us what you want people to take away from your film?
I want people, what I would want from my audience and what I could understand by myself as I spent more and more time over the film, is that that there is an internal life of of every oppressor, of everyone who traumatizes you. There is an internal life of that person. And in that internal life, that person is extremely fragile and volatile, and weak rather. And there are internal conflicts which are basically opposite to your social behavior. Like there's this story, Sadgati by Premchand. So Sadgati is all about an upper caste who is inflicting terror and violence on a scheduled caste person. And by the end, when he ends up indirectly killing the person, he takes the corpse of this untouchable person. And so this is the internal conflict. Every oppressor has to go through it. And at least for the starting, what Varun also talked about, the bridge. For me, the bridge starts by comprehending the oppressor, at least. So in this space and in every time, in all times, we have oppressors around us in different zones, at different scales. So at least understanding the internal space of that oppressor is very, very important. At least that can do some bit. So I think that will be enough. If a film can do this small bit, I believe it's fine. Yeah.
Shristipal, can you tell us about what you want audiences to take from Geru Patra?
Yeah, so I want to say like the political or social or anything like they are just situations, like situation or events like scenes in the film. So they will ultimately pass, right? But if you're true to yourself, then there is nothing to fear actually.
Great, very to the point. Varun, tell us about KISS, what it is you want audiences to take from your film.
Probably two things. One, whenever next they see an Indian film with a kissing scene, I would like them to not flinch. I would hope, and also imagine a longer kissing scene which was there but chopped off by censor board. So that is one. Second, on a serious note, more empathy, more awareness, especially about the marginalized groups, LGBTQ community, and in general, more empathy towards fellow humans and more compassion. I know all these are, generally, I mean, these words become hollow after a point. So I don't really want to, this is just hope. Ultimately, yeah, if the story stays with them and some of the themes stay with them, even if they don't really, like them, even if it doesn't change them in a worldly sense or in an immediate sense, I think the more people interact with cinema, the more people, even if they hate certain kind of cinema, at least they open a small window in their minds, or just watch something, and then it will eventually, I think, some good will come out of it. Eventually they'll change. Eventually, in some when life throws them into a certain situation, they might go back to certain scene in certain film they had seen, and or just hum a song which they had heard, and later maybe they'll realize it's written by someone they don't align with politically or ideologically, and then they'll feel, probably initially they'll feel bad about it, when then they'll probably start questioning the overall system and how things have been fed to them. So so lots of hopes actually.
Mm-hmm. No, thank you so much. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, all of your films have, something in common, which is the fact that they're quite short, but in many ways they're so rich, and there's so much that you say. And this idea of speaking truth to power is something that exists in all of your films, and there are multiple layers to them each. So I want to thank you very much, not only for your films, but also for your very generous answers. So thank you, Arafat, Varun, Prashant, and Shristipal, for joining me today and having this discussion. So, and thanks to everybody who tuned in. Thank you.
So much.
Thank you, everyone. Lovely talking, and have a good festival.
Yeah, have a great festival for everyone else. I hope that you take this chance to check out the films on Tasveer online, and that you hear this conversation and then watch all of the films. So have a wonderful rest of your day.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.